What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. Still doing 3 videos a week right now, so we don't want you to miss out on any of those, so make sure you're subscribed. I was sitting here in the boat rigging up a few rods to go fishing, and I decided I'm going to bring you guys along and show you exactly how I set up my spinning rods as far as braid to fluorocarbon leader. You know, that's one of the big questions I always get asked. I feel like that's a very popular question, is how do you connect your braided line to your fluorocarbon line? So I'm going to walk you through the whole process, the whole setup, and give you guys a quick rundown on how I like to tie my FG knots. You know, everyone is a little bit different on this. Everyone has a different sort of method or just process to tie this knot. So I'm going to walk you guys through how I do it, what works best for me, and hopefully you guys can learn from this and apply it to yourself and your fishing and learn to tie the perfect FG knot. I feel it's a superior knot for connecting braid to fluorocarbon. So hopefully you guys can learn from this video, but if you're ready, let's jump in. I'll walk you through the whole process. Okay, like I said, we are rigging up a spinning rod. I've done a few videos on how I spool up the spinning reel as far as putting the braid on the spinning reel, but I've never done an in-depth video on how I like to tie my FG knots. So we're gonna dive into that right now. So you can see I got my braid spooled up from my reel all the way up through the rod, and I like to keep a nice little distance of line off the end of your rod, because you need that line to be able to come back and you're going to end up holding it with your teeth here in a second. So what I like to do is I sit right here in this same spot in my boat, and this is a Phoenix, so this is going to vary based on what boat you have, but I take my rod tip right here and I put it behind the passenger seat, just like that, okay? So now that rod is behind there and I can pull tension on the braided line right here. So actually I need a little bit more slack, because I'm going to bring this back and hold this with my teeth, okay? So this is how you set up the FG knot right here. You need to have a little bit of tension on your braided line in order to pull that knot tight as you make each wrap, okay? So for me, I like to keep hands off. I can wrap the rod tip around the passenger seat there, and I can put that pressure on just by pulling with my teeth. Okay, so now once you've done that, you're going to take your fluorocarbon. So this is the Seaguar PEX8 braided line, and I use all Seaguar fluorocarbon. So I'm actually tying a leader right now of Tatsu. So I prefer the 10-pound Tatsu. So that's what I have here, this nice little convenient leader bag. I have the 10-pound Tatsu here. So I always set that to the left of me here, and you're going to hold the fluorocarbon, that's going to be your leader line, in your left hand, and you're going to hold the braid in your teeth, just like that. Okay, so now I like to take this, I'll leave about, say, 6 inches of fluorocarbon, and I'm going to wrap that around my middle finger twice, okay? So then that gives me the ability to pull tension this way now. Okay, so you got your 6 inches of fluorocarbon, and you lay it right over top of the braid. And I like to use these 2 fingers right here to pinch that connection point, okay? So that kind of gives you a hands-off approach. You can take a break if you need to when you pinch it right there with that. Okay, so let's get set up and let's go through. So, like I said, you lay the fluorocarbon over the braid, and then you're going to go underneath the braid and grab that fluorocarbon. Pull that tight, pinch it, and then you're going to go on this side of it, go under, grab that fluorocarbon, pull it over, and repeat. The front, then the back, then the front, then the back. Okay, and each time you do that, it's creating a loop around the line, and in turn, it is building that knot. You can see, hopefully you guys can see, well, when I stop, it likes to do that right there. But it will build that knot out as you continue to wrap around. So this is harder to explain than just continue to do it, because every time I stop, you kind of lose your place. So I like to just go through pretty quick, wrap, pull. And the whole time I'm doing this, I have tension here on my left hand on the fluorocarbon pulling towards the left. But you can see as each wrap goes by, that knot gets longer and longer. And you're pulling in all directions. You know, I'm pulling backwards with my teeth to keep that tension on there. And I'm pulling to the left with my left hand. And I'm pulling to the right with the tag end of the fluorocarbon. Okay, so generally, with this thinner braided line we have here, this is the, like I said, the Seaguar PEX8. It's the 18-pound line. It's a pretty thin braided line, so I like to go a little bit more wraps than I've seen other guys in the past. I typically go around 30 wraps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 30 times. You basically just do that, count to 30, and then your knot is formed. But if you let go, if you weren't pinching right here, it would just unravel. So when you get to 30, what you're going to do is lay your tag end of fluorocarbon up the braided line that goes to the rod, and you're going to take your tag end of braided line right here and go around those two and tie an overhand knot. So at that point, you can let go. That knot's not gonna come unraveled. You can see, maybe you can see, that perfectly tied FG knot right there. But one overhand knot is not enough. I always like to tie two just to be safe. Okay. So I like to tie a second overhand knot here. Pull that tight. Okay, now after you've tied that second one, that's when I'm going to give this the snug test. So I'm going to wrap my fingers around the main fluorocarbon and the main braid and pull that tight just to make sure everything is pulled tight, extremely tight, everything is seated the way it should be. And now after you've done that, that's when you're going to take your scissors and trim those tag ends. So you're going to have two tag ends. You're going to have a braid tag end and a fluorocarbon tag end. I just like to grab both of them with my left hand, pull the scissors right close to the knot, trim that tag ends just like that. Okay, and there is your FG knot. Now, if you would notice, there's a little bit of a braided tag end line that kind of starts fraying a little bit. And this is where a lot of guys go wrong with the FG knot, is I always like to take just a little bit of super glue on that braided end of my FG knot. So if you just put a little dab of super glue around that tag end, okay, you just need a little bit of super glue on there. And all you're doing with the super glue is just gluing that tag end of the braid together so it does not fray and unravel, and then your whole knot's going to unravel. So I just put a little dab of super glue on there, twist it together with my fingers, and now it's ready. It's dry. That that knot will not come unraveled right there. That will last you for as long as you want to use this fluorocarbon. You know, I really can't remember the last time that these knots have failed on me. If they are going to fail, typically it's when you do that snug test. When you wrap on here and pull tight, that's typically when you're going to see that knot slip and fail if it wasn't tied properly. But if you can get through that part, man, these knots will last forever, and you can enjoy a great leader line knot that runs through the guides well, casts well, and just does everything extremely well. So that's it, guys. That's my process on how I tie the FG knot. Hopefully you guys can learn from this. I'm curious if you guys do it a similar way. If you have a different process, I'm curious, all that, so make sure you drop it in the comments down below. Till then, appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit that like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and we'll see you guys next time.